Hey there, it's Carly. If you're a regular listener, we'd love your feedback on the show and to learn about what you'd like to hear more of. We'll even give you an Amazon gift card for your time. To find out more, simply send an email to contact@expatfocus.com. Last episode was all about making that decision to move abroad, and now we're getting practical. Moving expert and co author of the book, A Happy Move, Devra Jacobs, is going to share just how it's possible to make the moving process an enjoyable one. Devra, it's so great to have you on the Expat Focus podcast.
I'm really excited to be here. This is great.
You know, it's the start of a new year. We just had a life coach on speaking about the making the decision to pack up your life and move to a new country. And so I think this is a really natural progression that now we're speaking really practically about what that takes.
Well, and actually, in the book, I think I talk about I did that going to Korea. So I understand.
And Korea is not the only place. Excuse me, I did read in your book that you have moved 29 times. So, Deborah, my first question is what have you been doing in life that has seen you move 29 times?
Oh, well, if you ask my daughter, she'll say I'm part gypsy. I get this 3 or 4 year itch. And it's like, oop, time to go. Um, but some of the moves were for jobs. Some of the moves were due to being wiped out by hurricanes
Oh,
on the East Coast. Some of the moves, well, one of the moves was because I was married at the time. Um, but and I'm about to move again. So, but hopefully this is going to be the final.
so you mentioned Korea. Where else have has life taken you?
That's the only place out of the country I've gone. I had thought about moving to different places out of the country when I was younger, but then, once you have a child, it makes it a little harder to do things like that. So I've stayed within, I mean, I've been all over this country,
And what's your favorite area of the United States?
the South, and that's where I'm heading again, somewhere in the South. I love the Southern attitude and the slowness, and it's a much quieter way of life. I loved living in the Carolinas. I've lived in Alabama and Florida and Texas and all over the place. I like the Northeast. I mean, I was raised in Northern California, but it's just yeah, it's like moving to a foreign country now. So, I think I'm probably gonna head back to the South.
Deborah, your book is called A Happy Move, but let's be real. Is a happy move achievable? I would categorize a move as something that's more like a stressful move, a tolerable move, an anxious move.
A a move should be happy. A move should be full of the excitement for where you're going. And the whole purpose of this book, when I was asked to write it, was to take that anxiety level down, to have somebody be so prepared that it ends up being a happy experience or a stress-free experience. I mean, you have all of the tools that you need for before, during, and after. So it can be. I don't know. I think happy is just sort of the way I feel when I get to this new place and I get to go explore a new place. Um, but I think the whole point of it is to make it stress free. And it can be. It really, I think a lot of the anxiety that people get is because they aren't prepared.
How many relocations did it take for you personally before you hit that nirvana of a happy move?
At least 25. But I learned so much on each move. And that's why there's so much in this book because I think somebody could, and I've been told by people who got the book before a move, and they're telling me, wow, I couldn't believe how different this was. How different it is after. I mean, I think people have this concept that it's the before, that they freak out about, or, the during while they're waiting for their stuff to go cross country and, try and figure out where they're going to live. And it really doesn't end there. it, it's the after. And, with the forms and stuff that you fill out in the book, your after the move can be stress free as well.
That's what really struck me about your book is just how practical it is, and not just in those beginning stages in making to-do lists as you pack up where you are currently, but it really does follow you all the way through. In your experience, where's the most common place that people go wrong? Is it at that starting point?
I think it's absolutely at the starting point. If you don't especially clean out everything, people have a tendency they just pack everything and they get to the new location and either the furniture doesn't fit or they've hauled along all their kids' toys from when they were 3 years old and they're now teenagers. And you spend a lot of money doing that. I always tell people at least 2 months prior to a move, start purging. If you already know where you're gonna be, if you're renting or buying and you already know where you're gonna be, and that couch isn't gonna fit, sell it. Don't pay to move
Oh.
stuff you don't need.
See,
You
that's a
know, uh,
hard one in my mind, Devra, because I'm really in love with my couch, and I couldn't imagine a change of home meaning a change of couch. I mean, what you're saying makes sense. If it's not gonna fit, don't bring it with you, but
I actually did this, moving from Alabama to Arizona. I had this gorgeous black lacquer living room furniture. It was like a whole wall set, and glass doors, gorgeous. And I moved it, and I had to put a piece in every single room
it
of the
just doesn't
place.
work anymore.
No, and I ended up having to sell it, but it cost me probably close to $1,000 to move that living room set, and I ended up selling it for like $200.
So in that
So,
sense, it makes so much sense to
yeah, and
really think ahead.
if you know where you're going and maybe you're going to rent with the intention to buy, you can always move the furniture and put it in storage. If you really want that couch, and it's not going to fit in your temporary home, just put it in storage. If you're going to another country, however, I will tell you when I moved to Korea, I bought the most gorgeous furniture. And then I found out how much it was going to cost for me to get that hand carved wooden furniture back to the US, and I ended up leaving it there.
Something I see all the time in Expat Focus Facebook groups are especially people from the USA moving to Europe and wanting to bring all their appliances. And
And then they don't work.
and then they don't work, and
Yeah.
the electrical conversion doesn't work, and everyone's like, "Don't do it, you'll regret it,"
We talk about that in the book in the section for moving out of the country. There's resources in the back of the book where you can go check what kind of electrical, do they offer gas? Um, I know, and there's some countries, like when I moved to Korea, they took away my coffee pot that I had shipped there because it was
Oh,
considered a black market item.
so it didn't even pass through customs.
Didn't even pass their customs. Nope.
Wow.
So you really want to do, that's why I said it's the pre-move. It's the preventative, planning that really helps you. What kind of plants you can take someplace, what kind of pets you can take someplace. I know one woman who had written me and she, thank goodness, didn't move to the state she was planning on moving to because she owned two ferrets and they would have taken them
Oh.
away from her. Or there are countries where if you take a cat or a dog, they may have to be in quarantine for a year.
Mm,
Do you,
mm.
that would be terrible thing. I couldn't imagine my dog being in quarantine without me.
So I have friends who have rabbits in the UK. I think you can get domestic bunnies in Australia to keep as a pet, But in terms of importing them, absolutely not. And that's one of the reasons why my Australian friend in the UK won't move back is she's like, as long as this rabbit is alive, we can't take it with us, so we're staying here.
Totally understand that. I mean, there there are so many restrictions just moving to California from any state in the country.
Now that I
S
didn't think about
Yeah,
within the same country.
yeah, it's and that's why you wanna go through the resources in the back of the book and check that state, check that country, find out what the do's and don'ts are.
When it comes to a move, Devra, are you a bit of a DIY person or do you advocate for using professional movers?
Both. It depends on how far I'm going. I've done quite a few, DIY moves, rental truck or pod moves. Um, if I'm going cross country, and like when I've gone from North Carolina to California, I always use professional movers, but I always pack myself. I
This was
will
going to be my other question because I love
never.
the idea of people coming in and just packing for you, but then you're not really keeping track of where things are going.
Well, and I've learned some great packing techniques that I've watched professional packers move my parents, let's say, and they don't use these techniques. And you get to the other end and stuff is broken or stuff is missing. Um, I I have learned that if I pack myself, one, I save so much in room because they want to use paper and bubble wrap only. And then you have extra weight from extra boxes with clothing and stuff. I use clothing to pack a lot of my breakables
Makes a lot of
or
sense. Yeah.
towels, sheets. They with the professional packers also like one of my mother's moves, she wanted all of her fancy pots for her plants. Well, they packed them with the dirt in them, and you pay for a move by weight.
Wait, how would you move a plant if not with the dirt in it?
You can't She couldn't take the plants, so they took the plants out and left the dirt in the pots.
They move the pots with dirt and no plant in them?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And then I've seen where, I mean, there are certain states you can't even take certain plants to. I had a great deal of my plants that I had these gorgeous house plants that were thrown in the trash by customs in California.
Oh.
So you really, it's the planning, be
Mhm.
prepared. But I always pack myself, and there's really good YouTube videos I've started putting up on my YouTube page that gives you ideas on how to wrap your furniture so it doesn't get scratched or dented. Uh, how to pack sharp things. People don't think about that, and I watched a professional mover throw all of these knives in a box, and all I could think of is this poor person's going to be unpacking at the other end. How cut are they gonna get from these knives that were just thrown into a box?
That seems like a really poor choice. You've actually brought back memories of us trying to get our brand new L-shaped couch down 4 flights of stairs of an apartment building within a few months of, buying it, to move into our new place. And the only thing I could think to do was shrink wrap the couch so that the movers hopefully didn't damage the fabric so much around all these, like, tight corners. And underneath the couch didn't do so well. I know it's
Well, it
against a
was a
wall now, but underneath did not survive that move very well.
that was actually a brilliant choice on your part, and I learned
Really?
from
The shrink wrap?
professional absolutely.
Oh,
I
good.
learned from professional movers, you just buy handy wrap, plastic wrap,
Mm.
and you wrap up, down, around, and back, and there's a YouTube video on that, and that's what they use to protect furniture.
I didn't do a very, like, good job. There was some fabric peeking out in places. Like, it felt like, when you're wrapping a mummy with toilet paper, like in one of those Halloween games or something.
That's pretty
But
well
yeah,
what you do. It
yeah.
also, when you do that, like on a chest of drawer, it
Yeah.
keeps the drawers in.
Oh, yes,
So
yeah.
You
I
can
was
leave
using
your
the duct
clothes
tape.
you can leave your clothes in the drawer
Oh, I
if you
didn't think
use
of that.
yeah, and then just wrap it all with Saran wrap, and the drawers stay closed, and it doesn't get dinged up.
I do have a question about itemizing packing boxes, especially when it comes to for insurance. I was laughed at my workplace about 20 years ago as a young professional moving between states because I sat there for hours painstakingly writing out the title of every single DVD and CD I owned that I was putting in these packing boxes. And my colleagues were like, wow, you didn't need to go to like that much detail. Was that a
And I
bit too
and
much
I'm
information?
I'm laughing at you too. In actuality now, were you writing it on the boxes?
No, I was writing like I had a spreadsheet and I was
A
sitting there
spreadsheet.
like writing down what was in every box. Box number 5 contains my complete set of Buffy, Dexter, Angel, 80s movies, and I'd write every single title just because I figured then when I got to the other side, if something was missing, I'd know exactly what was missing. But
The
was that a
that
bit much?
that actually is not a bad idea. Now, don't write on boxes, as far
Okay.
as what's in the box. If you end up with a mover that maybe isn't quite as ethical and you put, big screen, flat screen TV
Okay.
or computer, that box could end up missing. But if you keep a list, and trust me, you can't really number boxes. The professional movers will put sticky numbers on it. You could keep a sheet of, your CD collection. Take a picture of it before you put it in there.
Maybe I should have. I think it was a day. It was the days when like not all phones had cameras, so
Yeah,
that would have been
but
more efficient for sure.
keeping a separate list like that is great because you could have written on the box, A3, and then put on your paper A3 and known if that whole box goes missing, what was in it so you can claim it on insurance. Absolutely not a bad idea. I disagree with them thinking you're neurotic. I
Like they were my pride, and that's probably the most expensive things I owned at the time. Let's be real, but
well, and but that's important to somebody. I mean,
Mm.
if you're like moving, I lost a whole box of crystal on one of my
Oh,
moves,
that's
and it
something.
was yeah, it was things that was from my grandmother, and it was you couldn't replace it. I knew what was in it, and on the box, all I put was fragile, and then I put a number. So on my sheet, it said grandma's crystal. Now I didn't name every single thing that was in that box. But I
5
knew.
bowls, 6 glasses.
I knew exactly what it was, and when you do professional moves, unless you have a lot of stuff, you're in a truck with other people's furniture or other people's boxes, and it's very easy for them to accidentally, give one of your boxes. I will tell people one of the things that I learned that was the most important thing on a professional move like that is they will mark off as the boxes come off. They don't tend to keep track of that very well when they're offloading. They keep track of it really well when they're onloading. So make them stop. If they're just popping tons of boxes off of there and they're not keeping track, make them stop. You're paying them, so make them stop and say, "Nope, you missed those 4 boxes, go back and check them off."
And I guess
See,
that's also why it's so important to be there on the other end when they do unload, if you can.
you have to be. You absolutely have to be. I've had people, like, have a neighbor or something in their new place be there. Well, you have no protection because if you actually are not there yourself and sign the paperwork accepting it, then you can't claim anything. I know I lost a vacuum on one move, but I gained a really nice step stool that was somebody else's.
Does somebody else end up with your grandmother's crystal? Did you ever find it?
Nobody ever found it.
Oh,
And
that sucks.
generally when they're missing, you don't tend to ever see things again. And that's another good reason for you to pack. If they don't know what's in your stuff, more than likely you're going to get your stuff.
Devra, you touched on pets a little bit earlier, but what is, in your experience, the most optimal way to manage one, pets during a move? And I don't mean to put them in the same category, but also kids.
Well, they kind of act the same in a car. So, are we there yet? Um, pets, people don't think much about their pets until they toss them in the car and they start driving. And then they're like, oh my God, this animal's acting like this. If you're going to take any pet, and every move I've ever made, I've had pets. Everything from a chameleon, a rabbit, dogs, cats. I mean, I've traveled with it all. Start taking them out to drive with you before you drive. You'll find out a few things. There's a story in the book about one of the cats that my daughter had that I don't know if you've ever seen the Garfield stickers on the windows of a car.
Yes.
That cat was in that position
Oh,
screaming
poor
from the
thing.
moment we pulled out. So you want to some animals you may need to go to a vet prior. If they're going to be too anxious, get them,
Some
some sort of
medication.
a medication to keep them calm. Some pets, like our dogs, did much, much better in a kennel than in the car than they did free riding. Um, Also, get them out of the car every couple hours. And this goes for pets and children. If you've got an 8-hour drive in front of you or, a 16-hour air flight someplace, get up, walk them around, do things. When I went to Korea, my daughter was 2. It was her second birthday. And I had to literally get up and walk her around the entire airplane every 2 hours. Otherwise, she was climbing over the seats and crying and having a fit. So with your pets, especially with dogs, you want to take them out. Stop. You need a break anyway. You don't want to drive too many hours. You'll get too tired, and that's not good for anybody in the car. Um, Also, make sure you're keeping them on their same feeding schedule. A lot of people, when they travel with pets, will say, "Oh, well, when we get to a hotel, I'll feed them. I don't want them to have to go to the bathroom." Well, it throws their schedule completely off. So if you're used to feeding them at lunchtime, pull off the road, feed them, walk them, play with them, get them calmed back down, then get back in the car. With children, the most blessed invention I have ever had on a move are the movie screens,
Oh,
the
yeah.
little video screens. Many moves I have made with popping a movie into one of those, and for at least 2 hours, your kid is completely content. Or games, Game Boys and things like that.
I mean, kids have so many more options for car rides now. When my sisters and I were young and doing 5-hour drives to see my grandparents for the holidays, it was books and games out the car window and yelling at each other because she's touching me, in the back seat. So I think if we'd had iPads or Game Boys or whatever the switches are these days, my parents would have had a much easier time.
Oh, it's amazing the difference. Now, I still, maybe because I'm old, I still like to play the car games,
Oh, they were fun.
and looking out the window because most of the time, the younger generation, you could be driving through gorgeous country and they never look out the window. But if you're playing some of these car games, it's wonderful because they go, "Oh, wow, I didn't know Texas looked like that." Or, "Wow, there's mountains with snow on them." And it's good to have that interaction.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you're going on a long relocation drive and you get to see so many beautiful landscapes, like, it would be a shame to miss it.
I like to, when you have kids, if you're going to move like cross country, make it a vacation. Take your time. Go to the national parks. One of the moves that I made cross country, we went to the Grand Canyon. We went all these different national parks, and we'd spend the night or spend 2 days in a place. and it really gave my daughter the appreciation of what's in this country.
Devra, what have you learned over the years about the timing of a move? Because I know just from living in Strasbourg now for a number of years that I would never move in September, for example, when everyone's returning from vacation,
Mm.
starting new jobs, starting school. No one can find accommodation, no one can find movers that are free. Like that would be the worst time of year. So, where you do have control over the timing, what are your recommendations?
Well, there's a few things that are related to timing. And I've done some major mistakes with moving to an island off of North Carolina on 4th of July weekend when everything is rented for the weekend, and basically living in our car for 3 days until everybody left. So, you wanna pay attention to holidays. You wanna pay attention to traffic. There are certain times where in certain cities, like, you don't wanna move to New Orleans during Mardi Gras. It would be insane. More importantly, weather. You don't want to move to an area that could be in a blizzard. So maybe if you got a few weeks that you can play with, or some people with their moves, I know the move I have coming up, I have a couple months I can play with. So it's like, well, maybe I don't want to go across Oklahoma in the dead of winter and hit snow. So maybe I'll push it out a little bit. I arrived in North Carolina during a hurricane. So
That's
really,
not convenient.
no,
No.
unloading a U-Haul in the middle of a hurricane is not fun.
Mm.
Trust me. So, really paying attention to that. Um, as soon as school gets out and you're moving, like where I live now in Flagstaff, which is the gate to the Grand Canyon, you don't want to be moving here the first week school gets out because everybody from all over the world is going to the Grand Canyon. Just trying to get a hotel reservation, could be your biggest problem on a move.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I don't know how easy it is to time a move for a weekday, depending on your commitments. But I could imagine that Saturdays for a pack up or an unpack are like the worst days to choose if you have a choice.
Well, and it really depends on your mover. If you're doing a professional move, they give you a 3-day window.
Oh, good.
So you have like they could be there Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
Well, as long as
You
it's not like a long weekend, I'm guessing that would be terrible.
Usually, they will never try to schedule anything. I have this weird thing, I don't know why on holidays I tend to move, and I don't know why that's happened, it's never been a planned thing, but I've moved on Christmas, the week of Christmas and Easter and New Year's, 4th of July. Um, Not a good idea to plan to do that. Mine's just happened by accident where I had to be within a certain date. Um, but the movers will ask you if you do a professional move. And remember, you're in charge. So you set the boundaries. A lot of people will be like, whatever they want. No. If they say, it's going to be Friday, such and such, the 30th of the month, and that's not good for you, tell them no. You know, y- you're paying them. Now, doing DIY moves, I will tell you a lot of times it's way cheaper to do them on a weekday than it is a weekend, because a lot of people wanna rent trucks and move
Hmm.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can actually get discounts and specials if you're doing Monday through Friday, or
Makes
really Monday
sense.
through Thursday. Same with air flights, if you're going to do an expat move, and your move is gonna be, uh, going to wherever, England, wherever, you're probably gonna get cheaper flights. I know when I went to Scotland, it was way cheaper for me to go Monday through
Yeah, on a
Wednesday.
Tuesday or Monday. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Where do you stand, Deborah, on having friends help out with a move? Because I know that We had a lot of friends volunteer our first time, and a couple years later when we moved again, no one was available. And I'm like, is it really because you're not available, or do you just not wanna help?
I've done local moves with friends. Like if you're just going cross town or something, yeah, offer to buy pizza and beer and get your friends to help you move. Rent a truck. That's great. But you cannot complain if anything gets broken if they're friends.
This is true.
And that does happen. Also, the other fear that I have, why I don't ask friends now, is if somebody gets hurt, you're liable. So if they drop that couch down that flight of stairs and it lands on somebody and they end up in the hospital, you're paying the hospital bill. If you hire people, it's on that company.
I
It's
think
just
in our
safer.
case, we found 2 flooring guys with a van who were willing to help us for cash. So, I'm really glad now that we didn't drop a couch on anybody because I don't think we had insurance for that scenario.
And see, that's not there. It's interesting now in the United States, and also I don't know if you have U-Haul where you are. They're international. They've actually started a thing where you can hire people to help you load those rental trucks now
A
through
person
their
with a van,
company,
yeah.
and they're insured.
Yeah, that's a really good situation, and next time we move, I should think about that for sure. Devra, in your book, you talk about the before, during, and after. Why is it that the process of moving in your mind is not complete once those boxes are in your new home?
There are so many things that come up after a move that you don't think about. It's not just making sure that the boxes end up in the right room so you don't break your back trying to shift things around. Mark them, kitchen, bedroom one, living room. Um, but after you're unpacked is when you now have to find a new dentist, a new doctor, get your kids in school. And if you've like filled out the forms in the book and you go to your doctor, you go, "Oh, okay, here, let me give you my last doctor's name, address, and phone number so you can get those records." If you have all of your kids' school records and birth certificates and stuff right there with you, you can simply take them to the school and get them registered. People don't think about that. A lot of times you get to a new location and you want to turn the utilities on in the new rental, and they say, "Hey, you don't have to pay a deposit if you had service with another company." And if you can open your book and say, "Yes, it's such and such company," and maybe it saves you 3 or $400 deposit someplace. So it's again in the planning. If you plan, okay, what am I going to need once I'm there? It may be that finding out ahead of time that a certain area is very prone to a certain kind of insects. Maybe you want to have your bug sprayed before you actually move in. There's so many things that little things. And in the tips in the book, I talk about a lot of these little things that I never thought about. And that's how I learned it.
No, that's what I really like about your book is just how comprehensive and granular you get about all these elements that when you're taking a really broad view of what you do need to do for your move, you can just so easily overlook. So, Devra, if people are really interested in your book, where can they find it?
I would go to ahappymove.com. All the information is on the website, even places that they can buy it. It is available internationally, um, and they can just ask for it at any bookstore and just go to the website. You can find out more about it.
Well, Devra, it's been a pleasure having you on the Expat Focus podcast to talk about that holy grail of a happy move and how to achieve it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for today. Be the first to know when a new episode drops by signing up to our monthly newsletter. Just head to expatfocus.com/newsletter to subscribe. And contact at expatfocus.com is where to email us if you would like to participate in our feedback survey on the show. We'll give you an Amazon gift card for your trouble. I'll catch you in the next one.